Here you can see a selection of countries that we will deal with here. Due to time constraints, we're not able to do all of them, and not all of them are also as interesting as others for non-residents. Now, starting with Mexico. Mexico introduced the VAT on digital services in June 2020, so we're almost dealing with Mexico for a good 4 years now. VAT is 16%, and as mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, the scope of services that are subject to VAT is rather limited. And if it's not on the list, then it is not taxable. So take that into account, because software supplies may, for example, not be taxable. So you can see the list that is in the legislation. So you can see it here on the screen. Now, where the scope in Mexico is rather limited, the compliance obligations definitely are not. So the principle is that for intermediation, there is a withholding. So that's the marketplace rules. But on the registration side, there's quite a lot to mention. And that starts already with the registration process. So the registration process in Mexico requires a lot of documentation with certified documentation, notarization, apostillation, and also once it's apostilled, it needs to be translated in Mexico by a Mexican translator. So where you see that the OECD recommends keep it simple, well, Mexico has tried everything to make it difficult for the taxpayers. So that starts with the registration. Now, once you have all the documents prepared, you think you are ready to go, but not in Mexico. You have to queue up in a virtual line, and you have to wait for a physical appointment. So the fiscal representative has to go with the documents to the tax office at the time that you got finally the appointment, and then they get you registered. You get the VAT number then right away, and that is when you start to file the VAT return. Also, that is not easy. So you register on the normal portal of the tax authority, but since you have to pay often from abroad, there is some additional requirements to the filing. So first of all, you file the VAT return. That gives you then a payment reference, but that is a national payment reference. So you have to take the numbers that you filed to the Treasury's website, insert it there, and that will enable you to generate an international payment reference, which has an expiry date. So you have to make sure that you pay as soon as possible, of course, in Mexican pesos. Then after that, you have to follow up also by email. And the problem is that if you don't get the payment allocated by the Treasury, it will not be forwarded to the tax authority. And even though you paid, you will still get penalties because you haven't paid on time because of allocation issues. So this is really something to take into account. And that if you look at the OECD principles, Mexico scores quite well. However, on the simplified procedures, you see the extra big cross because it's just so difficult.
If you wish to review the remaining comparative analyses of the countries, please refer to the link provided in the description for the complete recording.